It's become an unspoken crusade to make every female character purposely ugly.
It's a very, very dangerous angle to be looking at politics from. These blue-haired, nose-ringed tweeters.
The future of video games for the foreseeable future is, as Grums warned us all, very, very woke. You know what's not? Beachpunk.us.
Companies are seemingly pandering to an annoyingly loud and obnoxious voice of a few people,
forcing, in this case, clear as day, in my humble opinion, shoving transgenderism in our faces.
And this reeks heavily of what else? DEI. We've been talking about it a lot on this channel.
These are the real concerns. This is what people are talking about when they're focusing on Erika Ishii.
Ghost of Yote, the sequel to the beloved Ghost of Tsushima, has been met with cold hesitance from many in the anti-wokeist side of the internet, due to rather overt and strident political alignments.
Gamer Chud's indignation at the outrage of game developers no longer catering to their specific tastes is now a common occurrence, but that doesn't mean it doesn't piss me off. What are video games if not an escape from reality? A place where you can play a role different from the one you play all day long, every day of your real life. Isn't that how everyone feels about games? That's how I feel about them, and that's why it doesn't dent my precious sensibilities when a game has me take the role of something I am not, like a child, or a cat, or a woman.
Do I have to play as a girl?
These tortured cries of, do I have to play as a girl, don't resonate with me. Aren't you tired of cosplaying as a man in games? Aren't you kind of tired of cosplaying as a man IRL? I haven't always been a progressive by the current definition of the word, but for as long as I can remember, I've enjoyed playing women characters in games where I have the option to do so, because the women characters almost always look better than their man counterparts. Why play as this when you could play as this? Why play as this when you could play as this? And look at my character from Monster Hunter World. Nobody looks better than her. I have great news for all those sad babies who don't want to be a girl in Ghost of Yote. You don't have to play as a woman. In fact, you don't have to play at all. Maybe it's time to entertain the possibility that games aren't for you anymore. This is a hard lesson for the Dorito-dusted mouth breathers I'm talking about. They've gone their whole lives until now believing that the video game industry exists purely to entertain their walnut-sized forebrains, and that they have been and always will be the only demographic that consumes video games. But times change, and now that worldview is just a solipsistic fantasy. When they rage and cry and say things like, "There's no such thing as the modern audience," what they're actually saying is, I'm mad because there is a modern audience of which I am no longer a member. I'm serious. Here's a Venn diagram. See? This is the modern audience. And here's you, the neckbeard who coined the insult Mangela upon watching the Silent Hill 2 remake trailer. See? You're there. There you are. Longtime watchers of my channel might be having deja vu right now because I've talked about this kind of thing before in my video called Abuse of the Word Censorship. In that video, I outlined how gamers who were angry that Capcom removed a certain sexy animation from Street Fighter V during that game's beta period actually are not the target audience for the game Street Fighter V. So I'm sorry to repeat myself, but the same dynamic is at play in every case I've mentioned in this video. A company's goal is to make money. When they make their customers happy, they do so incidentally on the path toward making money. And if the game company has data pointing to profit in making people other than you happy, then you have to reckon with the possibility that the game company sees you as a minority that they can afford to ignore. Capcom isn't aiming for the demographic of people who jack off while playing fighting games, because that's not where the money is, even though I know there are people who can play Street Fighter one-handed. But I'm not just talking about the little boys who are afraid they might catch cooties from playing Gears of War 5. There are also some very straight, very manly men in the gaming community who are terrified of the prospect of woke games turning them gay. This channel, AndyPants Gaming, which started less than a year ago, is like an illustrated account of one man's struggle to avoid being mistaken for anything but an angry cis white guy. All his videos have these hilarious thumbnails with gigantic white text on them saying things like, "They're woke," and "gay and retarded." I like to think the pronoun "it" in both these two thumbnails refers to the same thing. The dude is clearly upset. I'm really curious to know about the initial incident that set Mr. Pants on the dark path. Maybe he got pantsed in front of the whole school at like a high school pep rally. Maybe that's where his name comes from.
Alright, look, if you're a mod on Reddit, you're not going to be able to handle this video. I've gotten banned from Reddit like 10 times because I showed up and asked you homos a simple question. But if there's one thing that is straight as hell, it's the rock solid video games of the 2000s. These games were masculine as hell, and we want them back, and we're boycotting video games until they come back.
I gotta say, it must be hard, not to mention expensive, to constantly need to affirm your masculinity by buying the right games. Imagine the pressure. For all we know, this guy is one slow Christmas season away from asking Santa Claus for the Judy Garland box set. The noisiest crying babies on the internet do have an excuse for feeling the way they do. They've spent their whole lives, until now, enjoying the fact that video games have always been made for them. As these gamers have aged, the game market has adapted to a widening demographic, effectively keeping them perpetually in the age range that game publishers are trying to attract. But while the video game industry grows and matures, these consumers refuse to. And I want to be clear about that. This is a choice. This isn't a learning disability. This is learning unwillingness. They're not incels. They're celibate because they choose to behave like intolerable trolls. Like I said before, my understanding of things like gender identity and race have improved over the course of my adulthood. I learned. And I'm proud of the fact that I learned. And I continue to learn. I can't empathize with someone who refuses to learn. You don't stop learning the moment you reach the age of legal adult, or the day you get married, or the second you become a parent. Having immutable beliefs is not the same thing as strength. And if your immutable beliefs are at odds with the views of everyone outside your immediate circle of friends, you're only going to make life more stressful and frustrating for yourself. So learn, get better, adapt to your new surroundings. You'll be happier, you won't shorten your own life, repel the people around you, and maybe, just maybe, you won't piss me off.